Hello everyone and welcome to another video of at Blake Builders here. Today we have a very special guest, Andy Palmquist from Aqua Systems, and we want to talk to you a little bit about water quality, both in new homes and existing homes. So I'm going to turn it over to Andy here with Aqua Systems, and we have probably three main topics we want to talk about today. One would be an RO, or reverse osmosis. The other one would be a water softener. And then another one that we see typically on some acreages would be the Eradicator. And Andy, if you want to talk about the RO a little bit and kind of what you see for new homes, existing homes, the challenges you might see in existing homes.
Sure. So on a new build, it's pretty easy. We can get in on the building process and kind of run the lines to the specifications for the customers. You could basically run an RO system to anywhere. So typically, we would like to install it in the basement. It's basically a 4-filter process. You got a sediment filter, a carbon filter, a charcoal filter, and then a membrane. The membrane is actually what makes an RO an RO. We call it freshly squeezed water. Water comes into the first filter. By the time it gets to the end filter, it's coming out super slow. So we like to store it in a storage tank, and then from there you pressurize it and push it up to a sink, a refrigerator. You can basically ice makers. We've even done it to where someone might want to turn their cold water in their kitchen on and it comes out full bore reverse osmosis water. It's all dependent on the customer, what they need. And like I said, it's fairly easy on a building process, but we do get a lot of customers that call after they've lived in a home or they've moved into a home maybe in the middle of Lincoln, Nebraska, where the home might be 99 years old. Then you got finished ceilings and walls.
You got to do drywall repair, paint.
A lot of stuff, depending on what it is. Sometimes the kitchen's located above a mechanical room, so usually in that case we can get the lines up to the kitchen at least. It kind of depends. So we have a guy right now that we're putting a reverse osmosis system in. His house is fully finished, but they were doing a big kitchen remodel, so they tore up some flooring, and at that time we ran the water lines at that time.
Yeah, and so as far as the RO system, the cartridges, where do you sometimes see them underneath the kitchen sink, or are they always in the basement, or are they underneath the bar? Or can they be wherever? They
can be wherever. So they don't use electricity unless you have, let's say, electrical booster pump. I know our systems have a non-electric booster pump, basically for a refrigerator to hit the. But typically when people think of one and they're not in the water world, let's say, they think of one under the sink. We like to put it into the basement because just in case with anything with water, if something were to happen to it, I'd rather have a little drip in a basement than under a sink. Right. And it doesn't happen usually, but if you can put it in the basement, that's the best placement for it. It's just as easy. Yeah. Easier for maintenance on changing those filters as well.
Right.
So.
Right. All right. Well, tell us a little bit about a water softener.
Sure. So water softener is it softens water. So it takes the calcium magnesium out of the water and it uses it with resin. So a typical water softener, you might see a cabinet model where you might lift open the lid of it, and there's the tank and the salt reservoir inside. The norm that we sell would be you have your separate tank and then you have your separate salt storage tank. And so basically the water comes into that main tank. It looks like a fiberglass tube. The water travels in, the resin steals the calcium magnesium out of the water, and then it exits soft. And so just like with any filter, it needs to be cleaned. And so we set those water softeners to the hardness of wherever we're at, and then it may regenerate. In Lincoln, typically every 1,200 gallons, it regenerates, cleans itself with salt to keep it clean. Okay.
And where do you typically see a soft water line ran to in the house?
Sure, so that's usually by the main water. Now we can get into some places like Omaha where they bring in the main water in one corner of the house and the mechanical room's in the opposite corner of the house, but typically it comes in either through the ceiling in the mechanical room or right off the main water line. Usually on new construction nowadays you have a main water line, a sprinkler line, and then a hard water line. The hard water line typically feeds outside hydrants, kitchen colds and refrigerators, soft water, everything else. And then, of course, the sprinkler line you keep on a hard water line.
The water softener really helps you the life of your appliances too.
Yes, and so, yep, mainly used for your water heaters and dishwashers. There's a lot of benefits to a water softener, but I would think that would be the main reason why you would have one in the house. Some people like it for hairs and soaps and different stuff like that as well.
Me.
Yeah,
doesn't really do much for me. Now talk a little bit about the Eradicator and what that is or what that does. Some people may have never even heard of an Eradicator.
Sure. So typically they're on well water or acreages or rural water lines. On the rural water lines, they treat the water system, but sometimes if you get into these little cul-de-sacs on rural water where the water kind of hits the main and then curves off into a little neighborhood, we'll get that rotten egg smell or sulfur smell is what we hear usually. If it's coming in from just the hot water line, we can kind of pinpoint that to the water heater, the anode rod, which is inside, but most of the time they're going to tell us it's going to be on the cold and the hot. And that would be the iron bacteria, which makes that smell. It's not a health risk by any means, but your nose gets killed with it. And so the Eradicator, when the water comes into your house, it's typically set next to a water softener. The water, it goes through an ozonator, and the ozone kills the iron bacteria, and then it goes through an iron media, which takes care of all the iron before it hits the water softener. The best way, in my opinion, on doing it is using peroxide. So there are some applications with bigger homes, bigger lines, more sinks, that the best way to do it, instead of using ozone, you'd simply use peroxide, and that's just an on-demand fill.
Very cool. Well, is there anything else that we need to talk about here? I think those are the main three topics that we get the most questions on. We have some clients that will almost always rough in at least the RO, or the water softener will be roughed in, and then the reverse osmosis will at least offer them, you know, the cost to go to wherever they wanted to go to, and then at least have the lines there now, so if later they want to add the system, they can.
Definitely, yep. Yeah, I would say something that I see in new home builds that I'd like to see more of is more outlets. And so a water softener takes up one. If they did need an Eradicator, it takes up two. So maybe like a 4-plex outlet would be nice.
Yeah. Great. Sounds good. Well, I wanted to hopefully this helped you guys all understand a little bit more about water quality and the different options. And you can always reach out to Andy at Aqua Systems. We'll put his information in the comments below for the video. And hope you guys all have a wonderful day. And we will look forward to putting more videos just like this out there. Thank you.
Thank you.